For the longest time, I have sort of thought to myself, while watching other people's stash busting videos, that I didn't really need to do this because I didn't really have a stash and I didn't really have anything to stash bust. I was in denial. I started knitting in July or August of 2023, but it was last year in 2024 that my stash really exploded. We're going to talk about why in a moment, but it made me realize that in 2025 I do really need to take a look at the things I have and actually try and work through some. What a concept. In this video, I'm going to talk about where my stash is right now, where I would like it to be, and a little bit of how I plan to get there. So let's start with why I need to stash bust this year. Currently, my stash is spread across 3 baskets, which I consider my whip baskets, a drawer, and 2 rather large plastic tubs. It takes up quite a lot of room, and while we have a bigger place than what I was living in 2023 when I started knitting, I still have way more yarn than I can fit in this house and also that I can feasibly use. Also, I feel like my partner will probably just start crying if I really try and bring any more yarn in. So it's time to make a move and use some of my stuff up. As I said, in 2024, my yarn stash really exploded. I don't feel bad about this because when I was thinking about it, there's really a positive side to it. I mean, I spent a lot of money on it and maybe that's not great. Part of the reason that my stash got so big this year was that in January we moved to a different state. We knew absolutely no one here. And my closest friendship that I have here now was built off the foundation of knitting and crochet and reading, but knitting and crochet. With that friend, I've been to some events, we bought some yarn at the same time. We also just spend a good amount of our time together talking about knitting and our plans and what we're gonna do, you know, and what yarn we're using and what yarn we're sort of looking for. So in that way, I think that is a positive because I've made this really great friend and I've had these experiences of going to yarn markets and yarn shows and I got to meet a sheep. Like, that was pretty cool. So there's that side, and there's also sort of the side that I have been expanding my skills. The start of the year I was not a very confident knitter. I knew how to do blankets, and in theory I knew how to do a sock. But now I am feeling more confident. I am reasonably good with socks now, and I've been slowly working on a sweater, and I have knit things for people and given them to them. And so with that, I have bought a lot more indie dad yarn, or basically things that aren't acrylic. In 2023, my yarn stash was almost entirely acrylic, bought cheap at Spotlight. And while that does have its place, a lot of my stash now is, merino and mohair and all sorts of other things. And I am learning how to use that. And yes, it's more expensive. I think it is more likely to be used. I personally don't really like the feel of acrylic, and so I would never wear anything acrylic. I might use an acrylic blanket or something like that, but I feel like the yarn that I have is actually stuff that I will use. In theory. In practice, that's how we got here. So let's talk about where the stash is. I have this journal here that, I don't know, I probably got like 10 years ago, and I finally found something to use it for, which has been to keep track of my stash. In here I have my current total, which is 17,736 grams of yarn. I feel like that really doesn't mean anything. Like, how do you picture that amount of yarn in your head? I decided to divide this into sort of 50-gram balls. Even though a lot of the yarn I have is in 100 grams, I just felt like 50 made more sense somehow. I don't know. I felt like the total number was bigger, but that it would be easier to take balls off this total. I don't really know if that makes sense, but in my brain that did. But the 17,000 comes to 354.72 50-gram balls. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person who is horrendously bad at finishing things. So what's my goal? What am I planning to bring it down to? When I first started this journal here, I actually did it in September of 2024. No, 2024, not 2023. And this was the first time I had ever gone through and weighed all of my yarn. And so I was looking at a total there of just under 15,000. And so my goal is to get back there again by the end of 2025. So my exact goal, and I went with this one in terms of balls of yarn, and that was to get it down to 297 balls, because in September I had 298. So I wanted to beat it, and I thought that rather than be exactly on the mark, we would go one below, and that would give me a total of 14,850 grams, which is still a lot. I am aware that this is not a huge amount. I mean, it is and it isn't. I think that picturing in my head what that looks like, again, same with grams, is how do I measure that number in terms of like something I can physically see. So my kind of physical goal for that is to empty one of the big plastic tubs that I have. I think there is probably a bit less in there than what I would need to get down to the 297, but I just feel like having that one tub empty is a really good, like, visible goal for myself. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to work out some way of that kind of making sense so that it's not just like I take everything in that tub and just like dump it somewhere and then I consider that tub empty. I guess as I move things between all my different baskets and whatnot, I will try and sort of empty that one as I go. So those are the plans. Now, how do I actually plan on going about them? So I think obviously major one is that I'm going on what I'm calling a yarn buying pause, because I often go on book buying bans and I realize that that doesn't always work with me. I am stubborn. I'm really stubborn. It is a family trait. And as soon as in my head I'm like, I can't do that thing, my brain just screams, what if we did it anyway? What if we bought 3 books? What if we just bought that random bag of yarn from the op shop? What would happen? Like, really? So I thought if I said it's a yarn buying pause, that means that I have a couple events coming up throughout the year. I can still buy yarn. I just am not buying it in bulk, or, you know, not in bulk, but I'm not buying a lot at the same time. And I am also not putting myself into situations where I can buy yarn. So no op shop trips, no trips to Spotlight. It's really hard because there's now a Lincraft at the place I work, and there wasn't a couple of months ago. And I really want to try things from them, but I'm being brave and I am avoiding those situations for now. I talked about this in my reading goals as well, which is that I think it's really important to reassess and adjust goals as you go through the year, because I think a goal that you set in January isn't always relevant by July. So I will definitely be assessing these and adjusting them throughout the year and creating little mini goals so that I can keep myself motivated, because who doesn't love being able to like tick something off a to-do list? I love doing that. That is a major way of getting me to do things, if I get to like mark it off or scratch it out, whatever. So that will be one part. I'm also going to, when I do buy yarn, do a 1 in, 2 out system. This is only really going to come into play when those events come around. I think I will, ahead of them, try and like, you know, really go through a couple of balls and see if, you know, however many I can kind of de-stash is, I can get essentially half of those. So that's that. My next one is that I will do clean out, a big clean out at least twice in 2025. My plan right now that I've written is just mid-year and then November, because December is just, it's not going to happen in December. There's so much other stuff going on. So in November, kind of as a spring clean as well, I will go through everything and I will try and get rid of some stuff. I did this in November, and I got rid of like 15 balls worth of stuff. And then I pretty much got all of that back. But anyway, it meant that I got rid of a bunch of stuff that I donated to charity, and a couple of things that honestly were just tangled and gross and went in the bin. And I also gave a bunch to my friend. So I found that helpful to get rid of things, because it was really looking at things that I'd had for a while. I think I'd had all of them either sort of pre-becoming a serious knitter, like I'd had them since I was a teenager, and also a few that I had bought in 2023, and I just hadn't used the things and I'd just been holding on to them and I had no idea what to do with them. So I finally just thought to myself that these should go, because I can hold on to them, but if I don't know what to do with them, some of them I don't really know what they are, I might as well just pass them on. And almost all of these were acrylic, My friend is a crocheter and she does like really little cute like animals and things. So she uses mostly acrylic, so passing on to her felt really good just to know that she would be able to use these. And she took some for her mum as well, and it just meant that it was, you know, moved on and moved into a new loving home where it will be used rather than sitting in a tub and ignored. I guess this is kind of the biggest way that I'm hoping to de-stash, and that is of course by actually knitting with the things that I have. I'm going to be honest, I am not good at saying I'm going to knit this project at this time and then actually knitting it. I am definitely a mood knitter. I'm the same with reading. I need to be in the mood to read that specific book, otherwise I won't enjoy it. And with knitting, it's the same. I have to be in the mood to knit that thing. And also, I just have a really bad attention span when it comes to knitting. I constantly want to be knitting the next thing, the thing I'm most excited about. And it's really hard to then stick with things that I was absolutely loving and I was having the greatest time knitting, and then I found something else. And then I did that. And then I didn't finish that. And now I have this one that I also didn't finish. So, finishing things. That's how I'm gonna try and do this. I've set myself a very, I don't know. I don't really know if this goal currently is like a low goal or if it's overly ambitious. I think in terms of this one, I'll sort of know halfway through the year as to whether this is possible or whether I'm going to have to adjust it. But as of right now, the plan is to try and finish 12 projects. I haven't counted yet, but I think in 2024, maybe I did like 5 or 6. So this would mean that I would need to push through and really get things done. But there's no point having all of this yarn if I never actually finish anything. And also, I want the things. I want the socks. I want to be able to wear this jumper I've made. And I want to be able to give things to people that I've been telling them I'd give them, or things I've been keeping secret from friends that I've started. And so I thought 12, one a month is hopefully doable, and that I will be able to, like, some months I might be able to finish 2 things, and then another month maybe the thing I'm working on takes longer, but I have caught up and everything is going okay. We will see. This is really important to the stash busting because I cannot count any of the yarn I use up until I finish that project. So if I am making a pair of socks and I finish the socks, and let's say I still have 20 grams left over of that yarn, I can count the other 80 grams that I use for the sock, and I can take that off the total as long as the project is finished, cast it off, and then weaved and blocked as is needed. But mostly they just have to be off the needles because I actually love doing weaving and blocking, so that's not really going to be the bit that I'm not going to do. So those are the goals. Hopefully this is somewhat doable and I will have a good time with it. I am planning to do some videos of this. I know that for January, possibly into Feb, we're gonna see. I'm gonna do it in vlog format, but it might be different, video to video, depending on what kind of time I have and how I'm feeling about the different projects and all that kind of stuff. But I am really excited to have you on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear if you're also trying to stash bust, so that we can be cheerleaders for each other. I totally believe in you, whatever your goals are, and I hope that you will cross your fingers for me as well. But that's it. That's the goals. Let's see how it goes. And I will see you all next time. Bye.